again bringing me back. As you know, for those that were here last year, I am Frederick Douglass. I just want to give you a little history. I began, or I'm going to do it like this, since we had the male choir go up beforehand, and they put...
From Pilgrim Rest, Missionary Baptist Church.
Say it again.
Pilgrim's Rest
Missionary Baptist Church, and they brought Jesus Christ in the fold.
Yes.
And I just want to let you know there would be no me without Jesus Christ. So I want to give my nod to him.
Amen.
And say thank you.
Yes, sir.
Speaking about Jesus Christ, it was 2009, February. I was in the mirror doing what we all should be doing once we get up in the morning. Brush my teeth. I was brushing my teeth and I heard 3 times, and they say 3 times is the charm. I heard Frederick Douglass 1, Frederick Douglass 2, Frederick Douglass 3. I looked around to see who was in the room with me. There was no one in the room but me.
Amen.
And that voice was just as loud as my brother who just said, amen.
Amen.
And it freaked me out. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm also a motivational speaker, so I'm going to share this with you. Don't play with your first mind. Your first mind is where your acres of diamonds lie. Sometimes when we hear that voice speaking, we have a tendency of saying, oh no, I'll let it go. No, he ain't talking to me. No, this is a fallacy. It's not happening. Well, let me let you know that because of the fact that I listened to that first mind, Frederick Douglass has taken me just about all over America. Because I listened to and I act. I didn't just listen. It's one thing to listen, but it's another thing to act. I act. And because I act, I have gone from Tampa to Michigan, California, you name it. Just doing Frederick Douglass. So.
Amen. Thank you.
And as Frederick Douglass speaks, he says that the liberator became his food and his drink. Me as Frederick Douglass, this is my food and drink. Ladies and gentlemen, also I'd like to share that as a child out of Baltimore, Maryland. Anybody from Baltimore here? Baltimore in the house? Well, I noticed the young lady I talked to over there, she's from Baltimore, and I noticed whoever black Toyota that is, that SUV, it has Ravens #1 fan on it.
Amen.
I don't know who vehicle that is, but when I saw that Baltimore Raven up there, I said, right on. Well, I was born on Thanksgiving Day. I know y'all want me to get to Frederick, but I got to share this. I was born on Thanksgiving Day. Again, use your thanks and your giving to the best of your ability. And that's what I've been doing all 60 years of my life. How good is God?
Yes, sir.
I was born February the 14th, 1818. My mother, Harriet Bailey, she would come to the plantation 3 times, maybe 4 times a week. And she would walk in the dark to get to me. Now, I don't really know my mother. I just know that she would rock me to sleep and she would sing My Little Valentine. A lot of you all know me as Frederick Douglass. That's not my real name. How about Frederick Washington Augustus Bailey? That's my real name. Some don't know that my dad, who I met, but I was not proud of my dad. My dad, Aaron Anthony, he was also my master. So that lets you know that he was a white man. And I'll let you know that when it came time for whippings, because I was his son, it did not relieve me of the whippings.
Amen.
I was on a plantation called the Lord's Plantation. The Lord's Plantation was the richest plantation in Western Maryland. Lord, Mr. Lord, he had 500 slaves on this plantation. 500, that was the richest plantation. And in that plantation, those slaves that I was junior to, they had to go out every day, and they had they did not go out and pick cotton. The Lord's plantation was not a cotton plantation. It was a tobacco plantation. It was a corn plantation. But there was no cotton. We didn't have what you wonderful people have to bed on. Queen-size beds, king-size beds, bunk beds. But we did have each other. We did have the floor, the wooden floor with the cracks in it so the cold could seep on up. As a child, I had potato sacks. We as kids, boys, we were allotted 2 pair of shirts, 2 pair of pants, and a pair of shoes. The adults, they were allotted, the men were allotted 2 pair of pants, 2 shirts, shoes. The women allotted 2 dresses, shoes. This had to last the whole 365 days of the year. The little girls, 2 dress, shoes. And when we wore out, especially the kids, when we wore out, well, we were just out with no clothes. One day I heard, while I was sleeping between all my relatives, I heard a scream and a shout. Me being curious as I was, I got up. And I ran to see what this shouting was. Ladies and gentlemen, it was my Aunt Hester being beat, strung up. And my master, I told you who my dad was. What was his name? Anthony. What was his first name? Aaron. Aaron Anthony. He was whipping my Aunt Hester. Why was he whipping my Aunt Hester? Because Aunt Hester was his, and Aunt Hester was seeing Ted from another plantation. And he was telling my aunt that you don't see anybody else but me, you're mine. And as he was whipping her, and I see the blood sprouting off of her, it just chilled me to the thin of my body. I cried, and I managed to run all the way back and get in between those other family members, and I cried the whole time. That memory stuck with me for a long time. As I got older, maybe about 8, 9 years old, I was moved. They moved me to Baltimore. I went to live with Master Hugh Ard and his wife, Miss Sophia. His wife, she couldn't read. His wife loved to read, but she couldn't read, so she used little Frederick, me, to help her read. Now wait a minute, how could I help her read if I didn't know how to read? So you know what we did, ladies and gentlemen? We read together. And when I went to sit on the floor, she said, no, Frederick, don't sit on the floor, you come sit next to me on the couch. And I said, Miss Sophia, you sure? She said, yes, I'm sure. So I sat right next to her, and we were doing the ABCs. A, B, C, and boom, the door opened. It's Master Hugh Ard. And he's looking, and he's like, Miss Sophia, I dare you to teach those slaves how to read. You teach those slaves how to read, then they want to put us in slavery. And he walked over to me, I bowed my head quickly, and he said, Frederick, you're not here to read. Don't never let me catch you reading again. So, sir, you know what I said with my head tilted down? I said, Master, I'll never read again. I hate reading. Reading's no good, Master. That's right. I don't never want to read again in my life. And he said, that's right. And don't you forget that. I have you know, ladies and gentlemen, that's what came out of my mouth. That's not what was in my mind.
I know that's right.
My mouth was saying, I don't never want to read again. My mind was saying, I can't wait to get my hand on a book. He just inspired me. He just motivated me even more to want to read. So they had a son named Tommy. Tommy went to school. when Tommy came home from school, he had what in his hand?
Books.
He had books in his hand. Tommy would take those books upstairs. And when the whole family would disappear, where would I be at? I'm upstairs reading those books. Well, it got to the point that Master figured, he said, you know what? And by this time, I'm probably about, I'll call it 14, 15 years old. I'm kind of built for my age and what have you. So he's telling Miss Sophia, you know, that boy getting a little too smart.
Yeah.
Now, sir, I tried to hide all my education. I tried to walk around like I was dumb and like, you know, I didn't know anything, but those 15-mile words would slip out every now and then. So when they would slip out, Master would catch them. So you know what he said? He said, we're going to teach this boy a lesson. Let's move him over to Corvée. We're going to give him to Corvée for a whole year. And Corvée will straighten this boy out for real. So when they moved me over to Master Corvée's plantation, as soon as I got on the plantation, he started whipping me. He started beating me. He started locking me up. And you know what he did to me? Somebody say what?
What?
He broke the wild stallion. He broke me. He broke me so much that when I walked on, I was like this in 5 months. I was like this. Well, one day, while we was fanning the mill, I got hurt. I was feeling kind of bad that day. So what he did, what happened was, the guys I was out with, they said, Frederick, get up, Frederick. You know Master Corvée is a snake. He'll be here in a heartbeat. So I tried to get up and lift the hay up, and I moved. I dropped again. Well, this time when I dropped, and I'm holding my side, who's standing there? Master Corvée standing there. Now, Master Corvée drew me into his web. How many of you all know about the spider in the web? How he can draw you in, a fly. Well, he drew me in. You know how he drew me in? He said, Frederick, what's the matter? So right away, I'm thinking, wow, he cares about me. So I said, Master, I'm hurting. Where you hurting at, Frederick? In my side. He said, where? Right here. Well, you know what he did? He showed me how much he cared. Because he took his foot and he kicked me dead in my side. Not only did he kick me in my side, he took a switch and he started whipping me and he burst me in my head with blood coming down. So you know what? I forgot about my side, what was hurting. Because you know what my feet was telling me? My feet was saying, don't fail me now. So I got up and ran. That's right. I ran and I ran all the way back to Master Hugh's house. When I got there, they were sitting at the kitchen table. Master looked up and he said, Frederick, what are you doing here? I said, Master, you got to move me. You got to move me. He said, Frederick, you need to go back. And what saved me was Miss Sophia, his wife. She said, well, let Frederick stay tonight. So I stayed the night. When I came down the next day, it was Saturday. They were having breakfast. Pancakes. What else they have for breakfast?
Eggs.
There you go. So, you know, I'm smelling this as I'm coming down the stairwell. My stomach is starting to what? Growl. So when I get down to the kitchen table, I move the chair back before I could take a seat. All the master did, he just pointed out the door. So I ran out the door on my way back. When I got back to Master Corvée's plantation, I'm going over the fence. Here he comes. What he got in his hand? He got a whip. So you know what I did with this leg? I took it and I took it right back over and I ran again. And when I got to Jake, who was a free slave who lived out in the forest with his wife, I got to his house. He let me stay the night. The next morning he said, come go with me. So I go with him. We go out. He starts digging. He comes up with a rabbit's foot. He said, Frederick, I promise you, if you put this in your right pocket, Master won't mess with you again. I said, I don't believe in that superstitions. He said, well, you better believe in this or you're going to be taking some more behind whippings. I said, well, give it to me, and I put it in my pocket. When I got back to the plantation, again, this same right leg, I'm going over. Who's coming again? Master Corvée. But this time he's coming, he said, Frederick, welcome back. We miss you. And I was like, wow. So I come over and he grabs me, he's walking with me. He said, I want you to take the rest of the day off. Just take it easy. I was like, wow, I'm thinking to myself, this rabbit foot is really working. Well, the next day, which was Monday, he said, Frederick, I want you to go to the barn. I want you to clean the barn up. I'm like, yes, master. I go clean it up. So while I'm in there with my back turned, I'm in the stall cleaning. I turn around, he's standing at the door. What he got in his hand?
Whip.
He got a whip. And he lashes out, and the whip catches me on my ankle. He pulls me, but then when I'm halfway there, the whip. And when I grabbed the whip, we pulling each other to each other. And when we got to each other, we started tussling. And after a while, he said, well, Frederick, you must want to die today. I said, well, Master, I guess I'm going to die today because you ain't going to beat me no more. And then all of a sudden, he started screaming and howling, help, help. Another slave comes through the door. The slave comes through the door. He touches me. I kick him off. He run. Another slave, he comes in, but this time he just looked. And he went on out. Then a burly-sized young lady came in, and Master said, get Frederick now. You know what she told Frederick? She said, she told Master Corvée, she said, Master, I'm here to work for you. I don't work for him. So that's your battle. She turned around and left. When it was all said and done, I got up, Master stayed down. But then 3 days later, Master come to me and he said, Frederick, don't have me get at you again. In my mind, I said, Master, you don't want none of this again. So the rest of my time there, he never touched me. So I wound up going back to Master Hugh. Master Hugh sent me to Master Freeman, just to move on for time. Sent me on to Master Freeman. Master Freeman allowed me to do what I wanted to do, per se. All right. So what I would do, I would have classes out in the woods. We had 50 slaves that would be out there in the woods. Now somebody out there say, Judas? That's right, because Judas was in the midst. Right. Judas would run back and tell the slave masters, Frederick got those slaves out there teaching them how to read. So one day, what happened is, while we out there having class, who come bursting in the door? The masters. Bricks, chains, and everything. And who wind up going to jail? Yours truly. But they don't know while I was in jail, I was having a good time. You know why I was having a good time? Because I got 3 meals, I got a cot, and I got a shower. So they were trying to break me, but God was blessing me. Come on now.
All right.
So, when it's all said and done, they tried to ship me off to another plantation. But my Savior came in, Master Hugh Ard. He taught me a craft, so he allowed me to go out and rent myself out. So I'm making money, all right? While I'm out there making money, Master taking my money, so I had to bring it to him. I said, okay, well, guess what? If I'm making $6, all right, and he would give me a penny from that $6, I said, okay, when I got a raise, what I would do, I got a raise to $10, I give him the $6, I keep the $4, and he gave me a raise. So I went from a penny to a quarter. So I got what? $4.25. And I had made up my mind. September the 18th, 1838, I was going to make my move. Sir, I like the way you're looking at me because I'm going to talk to you. Forget about everybody else. I'm talking directly to you. September the 18th, 1838 was my girlfriend. That's right. My girlfriend and my wife, all right? She, Miss Anna, all right? She sold a lot of her merchandise to help me escape on the train going north to New York. And when I got to New York, sir, it was on. The show was on. When I saw all those gentlemen, those black men with these suits on and the tall hats, I was like, wow. And I saw these beautiful women walking around with the nice dresses on. And I saw these men bowing to these women as he walked by. Every time a woman bowed, they didn't have to know him. They just bowed. I was like, wow. I'm free now. Well, another black man came who was a lawyer. He took me in. All right? When he took me in his house, we talked. He said, you can stay overnight. Well, the first thing he did, the next morning when I woke up, you are not going to believe this. The next morning when I woke up in this man's house, guess who was sitting on the couch in the living room? No, take a wild guess. My girlfriend, Anna. Anna was sitting there, and before we left his house, we had got married. And when we left his house, I didn't leave his house as Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey. I left his house as Frederick Douglass with 2 S's. We talked about changing my name, so we went from Bailey to Johnson. I said, no, I don't want Johnson. He said, why not? He said, because there's too many Johnsons. I'll show you right now. All right, here we go. Here it is. Raise your hand if your last name is Johnson. There you go. So watch this. Watch this. Officer, my name is Douglas. I didn't do it. So, anyway, we leave leave, we go up to Massachusetts. All right, we get to Massachusetts, New Brunswick. I wind up joining Mr. Garrison. We go on a 6-month speaking tour. From there, all right, I wind up breaking off from Mr. Garrison, and are you ready for this? In this is where I really want to get to. In October of 1860, I had the opportunity, before this man became president, I had the opportunity to meet with this man. Not only did I meet with this man, but I wound up campaigning for this man because I believed in him, because he was running on a platform of ending slavery. But he had to do it in such a way that it would not interrupt with the who? The Confederates. It would not interrupt with who? The Democrats. So this gentleman that I'm talking about is no other than
Abraham Lincoln.
You said it, I didn't say it. Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln.
So I wound up meeting with him again once he became president. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question, all right? How many of you all out here is a fan, or should I say, Obama supporter? Obama supporter, all right? So a lot of you all think that President Barack Obama was the first black man to be in the White House. Before Dr. King, before Adam Clayton Powell, before any black man was in that White House, and I'm not talking about the slaves who built the White House, but I'm talking about a distinguished gentleman by the name of me, Frederick Douglass, was in the White House. And not only was I in the White House, when I'm standing up, anybody ever been to the White House? All right? You know where the main gate is at? All right? I'm standing in the main gate, at the main door, knocking on the door. And how many of you all know there's bodyguards and there's officers that's patrolling the White House? They had that back then too. All right? Well, one of the officers came to me, not knowing who I was. He said, "Excuse me, sir." He didn't say it like that, but I'm just saying it just for the times we in. All right? Sir, you need to kindly, sir, see how I dress this up. You need to kindly go to the rear, sir. Now, how many of you all know he didn't say it like that? Okay? There was the N-word and everything else in that thing, all right? But anyway, all right, as I'm getting ready to walk off, who walks by? Inside the White House, who walks by? President Abraham Lincoln. And he turns and he looks and he says, Frederick, my good buddy, Frederick. And he tells the guards, move aside, let my friend in, let Frederick in. So I walked in, I got on my nice black suit.
You got a suit now.
Come on now.
You got a suit now.
I went down to Woolworth and I got it.
Come on now.
I went to the first Woolworth in the country. That's right. And I bought me a black suit and a tall hat.
A top hat.
A top hat.
Top hat.
That's right. You know, ladies and gentlemen, in case you don't know this, I'm paying him after this. After this, he's getting paid. All right? So
Don't fire me, Frederick.
So as I go in, quite naturally, I take my hat off and I'm told to sit down. So I sit down, all right, because the president had to go off for a second. So as he comes back in, all right, I'm looking at him. Now I will be honest with you, this is my first trip to the White House. So please understand, ladies and gentlemen, I am quite nervous.
Yes.
All right? My stomach is bubbling, okay? I got lumps in my throat, all right? But I'm here for a specific mission. I believe in Frederick Douglass, and I mean in Abraham Lincoln, and I also believe that President Abraham Lincoln was our savior. So my question is, how many of you all got Abraham Lincoln in your pocket right now?
That penny.
How many of you all got Abraham Lincoln in your pocket right now? Okay? So anyway, I don't have a chair up here, but while I was sitting, can somebody bring me a chair real quick so we can do this?
I'm getting paid, might as well, brother.
So, how many of you all know, and that's right, I'm going there, how many of you all know how our young men, and when I say our young men, I'm talking 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and a little lower, how many of you all know how they sit in chairs? If you don't know, let me demonstrate.
Okay, that's them.
But me being a black man, when I sat in that chair, how many of you was raised when they told you, now you better know how you act, you better know how to act when you get outside this house? Anybody was raised like that? Yeah. Don't have me come at you. See, they don't raise kids like that anymore, all right? That's a whole nother thing to talk about. But anyway, when I walked in and I sat down, you better believe, I sat down like such. And when I got comfortable, like such. This is how I got comfortable. And when the president and I began to talk, because I had some things on my mind, I was concerned about, of course, my people in bondage, my people in slavery, my people and their freedom. I was also concerned about black men being able to serve in the Civil War. That was a great concern of mine, because I wanted it to be known that black men in this country were just as able to serve, just as able to shoot a rifle, just as able to save someone, just as able to ride a horse, and just as able to take command, and just as able to be a soldier. All we had to do, like the white man, was to be trained. I wanted to force my opinion on that. And not only force my opinion on that about a soldier, but I also wanted to know that when the white soldier, they have insurance. If they get wounded, they can go to the infirmary and they can get taken care of. The black man get wounded, they have to go somewhere else. And 9 times out of 10, they're gonna die. So that's something else I wanted. What about housing? What about housing? I wanted to bring that to the table as well. In reference to slavery, President Abraham Lincoln, my friend, how long do we as a people have to be in this bondage? We did not ask to come to this country, but we have contributed much to this country. How long do I have to see my brothers and my sisters hanging from poles by the Confederates? There's 200,000 black men that are lined up right now wanting to get into the war to help save the South. So, Mr. Lincoln, I beg of you to, 1, release my people from bondage. 2, allow my people, my men, to be able to enlist to help save this country. And number 3, sir, we need to open up the voting rights for women of this country. Now, for all of you that don't know this, that yes, I fought hard for women's rights. It didn't matter if you were black, if you were white, it didn't matter. But what did matter is that you were a human being. You are the mother of our children. You take the butt of this life. And you need to be able to be free, and you need to be able to vote as well. So those were the 3 issues that I brought to President Abraham Lincoln during my visit as the first black man in the Oval Office.
Amen. Come on now.
Now, unlike here, it is nice and warm. So I had to have on that suit. And I'll let you know that once I got outside of that White House, I turned around and I looked at it. I stared at it. And I said, wow, I can't believe it. I really was in the White House. Well, let me move ahead again. It was 1865 at the inauguration. 2 things happened in 1865. President Abraham Lincoln, was reelected. And he was getting ready to give his inaugural speech. I have you know that as I was sitting outside as a spectator, I had an eerie feeling going through my body. I couldn't understand, first and foremost, how they would let this man walk freely through the streets as he did. As I'm looking at him, I'm also looking around because I was fighting for his life. So anyway, when he got to his seat, ladies and gentlemen, His vice president was sitting next to him. His vice president, Mr. Johnson. Are you ready for this? President Lincoln happened to notice me sitting out in the audience. So he poked Vice President Johnson. And he says, Johnson, there's my good friend Frederick sitting out there. Wave to him. Prior to Mr. Lincoln saying that, Mr. Johnson had a smile on his face. When he pointed to me, because I was looking dead in his eyes, when he pointed to me, this is his facial expression at first.
Yeah.
And then when I was recognized, his facial expression went to this. Ladies and gentlemen, you only get one time to make a mistake. You only get one time. And that was the one time that I saw the realness of this vice president. When I got home, I told my daughter, Rosetta, I said, I do not trust Vice President Johnson. He's no friend of this family. Now, Rosetta said, oh, Dad, you can't say that. He's a good man. He's with President Abraham Lincoln. And I said, Rosetta, that's what you see. But I saw the heart of that man. He is no friend to the black people of this country. So what we have to do, we're going to have to do what we need to do while my good friend Abraham Lincoln is the president. Because if he becomes the president, we're through. Ladies and gentlemen, a few months later, while my good friend was at the Ford Theater, him and Mrs. Lincoln observing the play, a young man by the name of John Will Booth stepped up and he assassinated President Abraham Lincoln. I see my time is rolling, but may I ask, can I have 10 minutes? I would love to do the speech. And this speech, because a lot of people ask me, they say, what does Abraham Lincoln, what does he have to do with Juneteenth? I'm going to tell you what he has to do with Juneteenth. If he wouldn't have signed that Emancipation Proclamation, there would be no Juneteenth. Right. Those people in Galveston, Texas would still be in slavery. 1865, when they were told, that was the last of the slaves, 200,000 that was still in slavery. So, as I'm made, I'm going to say it like this, as I'm made to get off this stage, I'm going to leave you with this speech that is a nod to the one and only President Abraham Lincoln, my good friend. Go ahead, sir. Can you hear me? Yeah. Friends and fellow citizens, this occasion, in some respect, is remarkable. Wise and thoughtful men and women of our race who shall come after us and study the lesson of our history in these United States will make a note of this occasion. We will think of it and speak of it with a sense of manly pride and complacency. We stand today at the National Center to perform something like a national act, an act which is to go into history. And we are here where every pulsation of the national heart can be heard, felt, and reciprocated. Harmless, beautiful, proper, and praiseworthy as this demonstration is, I cannot forget that no such demonstration would have been tolerated here 20 years ago. The spirit of slavery and barbarian, which still lingers to blight and destroy in some dark distant part of our country, would have made our assembling here today an excuse for opening upon us all the floodgates of wrath and violence. That we are here in peace today is a compliment and a credit to American civilization and a prophecy of still greater national enlightenment and progress in the future. The sentiment that brings us here today is one of the noblest that can stir and thrill the human heart. It is the first time that, in this form of manner, we have sought to do honor to an American great man, however deserving and illustrious. We, the colored people, newly emancipated and rejoicing in our blood-bought freedom, exult in the character and work of Abraham Lincoln, the first martyred president of these United States. He was preeminently the white man's president, entirely devoted to the welfare of white men. He was ready and willing at any time during the first years of his administration to deny, postpone, and sacrifice the rights of humanity in the colored people to promote the welfare of the white people of this country. He came into the presidential chair upon one principle alone, namely opposition to the extension of slavery. To protect, defend, and perpetuate slavery in the states where it existed. Abraham Lincoln was not less ready than any other president to draw the sword of the nation. He was ready to execute all the supposed guarantees of the United States Constitution in favor of the slave system anywhere inside the slave states. The race to which we belong were not the special objects of his consideration. Knowing this, I concede to you, my white fellow citizens, a preeminence in this worship at once full and supreme. You are the children of Abraham Lincoln. We are, at best, only his stepchildren, or better yet, his children by adoption. For while Abraham Lincoln saved you a country, he delivered us from bondage. Fellow citizens, ours is no newborn zeal and devotion, merely a thing of this moment. The name of Abraham Lincoln was near and dear to our hearts in the darkest and most perilous hours of the Republic. We were no more ashamed of him when shrouded in clouds of darkness, of doubt, and defeat than we saw him crowned with victory, honor, and glory. It was enough for us that Abraham Lincoln was at the head of a great movement, which in that movement must go on until slavery should be utterly forever abolished in the United States. It shall be asked, what we have to do with the memory of Abraham Lincoln, or what Abraham Lincoln had to do with us? The answer is ready, full, and complete. Though he loved Caesar less than Rome, though the Union was more to him than our freedom or our future, under his wise and beneficent rule, we saw ourselves gradually lifted from the depth of slavery to the heights of liberty and manhood. We saw that the handwriting of ages in the form of prejudice and proscription was rapidly fading away from the faces of our whole country. We saw our brave sons and brothers laying of the rags and bondage and being clothed all over in the blue uniforms of the soldiers of these United States. Under his rule, we saw 200,000 of our dark and dusty people responding to the call of Abraham Lincoln. Under his rule, we saw the independence of Black Republic of Haiti and her minister, a colored gentleman duly received in the city of Washington, D.C. Under his rule, we saw the internal slave trade, which so long disgraced the nation, abolished, and slavery abolished in the District of Columbia. Under his rule, we saw the first time the first slave trader hanged like any other pirate or murderer. Under his rule, we saw the Confederate States battle to pieces and scattered to the four winds. Under his rule, we saw Abraham Lincoln penning the immortal paper, making slavery forever impossible in the United States. Though we waited long, we saw all this and more. Can any colored man or any white man friendly to the freedom of all men ever forget the night which followed the first day of January 1863, when the world was to see if Abraham Lincoln would prove to be as good as his word? I should never forget that memorable night when in a distant city I waited and watched at a public meeting with 3,000 others not less anxious than myself for the word of deliverance when we have heard read today. Nor should I ever forget the outburst of joy and thanksgiving that rent the air when the lightning brought to us the Emancipation Proclamation. Abraham Lincoln's great mission was to accomplish two things. First, to save his country from dismemberment and ruin, and second, to free his country from the great crime of slavery. Fellow citizens, I end as I begin with congratulations. We have done a good work for our race today in doing honor to the memory of our friend and liberator, Abraham Lincoln. We have been doing the highest honors to ourselves and those who come after us. When now it shall be said that the colored man is soulless, that he has no appreciation of benefits or benefactors, when the foul reproach of ingratitude is hurled at us, and it is attempted to scourge us beyond the rage of human brotherhood, we may calmly point to the monument we have this day erected in the memory of Abraham Lincoln. We are free, we are free, we are free at last. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, let's put those hands together nice and loud for our Frederick Douglass.